Pro, and thanks everyone for joining this session. My name is Tudor Andreescu. I'm a part of the product management team for Prisma Access in Palo Alto Networks. I'm really excited to talk about this new feature, Traffic Replication, that it's a great timing. This been just GA'd this week, along with the Prisma Access 4.1 release. Right, so that's perfect timing. What I'm going to talk today, it's why we invested and built this function, and hopefully some of the use cases that we'll be covering during today's session would be a good match for what you're seeing in your environments, right? I'll start with the problem that we're trying to solve here, right? We are all familiar with the legacy architectures where it was very heavy on the data centers, right? I'm not saying anything new here, and it's a very, very lightweight representation of the legacy architectures, right? But in principle, right, these older architectures were very heavy on the data center. That's where most of your apps would be sitting. That's where most of your security stack would be sitting, and that's where most of your other SOC and NOC tools would be sitting. Very often in these architectures, we see many companies having parallel infrastructures, like some packet brokers, multiple span ports in different places of the infrastructure, tap ports as well, right? Port mirroring being used as well. And the purpose of all this was to get a copy of the traffic that you would see between your users and your applications. In these legacy architectures, these things would be quite static, right? Your users most of the time would be in the branches, apps most of the time would be in the data center. So you would have full access to this traffic, so you can do all kind of analysis that you might need to do, right? And I'm specifically calling out both these buckets of issues, right? Some teams would be looking after security use cases. Some other teams would be looking more from a networking and application performance point of view. And I'll go through some concrete examples where getting a copy of the traffic that's been well inspected inline, right? It's useful, right, for additional checks, right, and going from debugging exercises to far more advanced detection mechanisms, right? So this was kind of very common in many legacy architectures when things were pretty much static, right, in terms of where your users would be, where your applications would be, right? And you as a admin, either part of SOC or NOC, you would have a lot of control into how the traffic would go and ability to manipulate and get, let's say, pickups out of that traffic. Now, right, things change significantly, right? Now your applications are not anymore in your data center, right? Either you adopted the public cloud, something like GCP, AWS, Azure, right? Or even more, right? The explosion of SaaS applications today, it's a reality. So that's on the application side. Same time, your users are working from anywhere, right? Could be in a coffee shop, could be in an airport, etc. So very often these digital transformation, right, requires you to adapt your security stack as well, and this is probably the main driver for customers to adopt SASE, right? If your apps are anywhere, your users are anywhere, now your security stack needs to follow this trend and be also in the cloud, elastic, etc., right? And this is the main driver to adopt SASE for very good reasons. The challenge with that is that all that control and the ability to do additional analysis of your traffic for different use cases kind of goes away, right? Good luck trying to get a pickup of the traffic or a copy of the traffic between your users sitting in a coffee shop and your SaaS application, with your security stack being also in the cloud, right? So we see this as a kind of a trade-off that so far customers and enterprises had to do when adopting SASE, right? The reasons to adopt SASE are absolutely there, right? And but along with this move, right, some of these abilities in analyzing more in depth this type of traffic between your users and the apps would have been lost till today, right? Creating some we call them blind spot in NOC and SOC use cases. What we're trying to solve here with Prisma Access Traffic Replication that we just launched, right, is to bring back that visibility, right, and practically eliminate any trade-offs in terms of your security posture or your ability to debug things in as many details as you want when you adopt SASE. And specifically, right, Prisma Access is the first SASE solution that provides this ability to give you a copy of the traffic that's being traversing through Prisma Access if you need to, right? It's a very unique feature. It's the value behind the scenes. It's quite tremendous from what we can see, and I'll go soon through some of the use cases that can be solved by adopting this traffic application in Prisma Access. Few highlights, right? I'll go into some details further, but right, in short, traffic application, as I mentioned, is the ability to get a copy of the traffic that's been inspecting by Prisma Access for further analysis. We build this solution trying to be as agnostic as possible, right? Not creating it for a certain way of consumption or certain tools for consumption. So we wanted to keep it as open and as standard as possible. And I'll go into some implementation details in a bit. And right, it's also one of the drivers that we've seen for such functionality. It's also to help customers continue to meet a lot of compliance requirements, right? So this ability to debug things further on the SOC and NOC teams is one thing, but very often we hear about requirements such that, hey, you as a company, you need to store all your traffic for X amount of time, just in case we need to go back. So there are regulations in different verticals that are also quite a significant driver for, and so far it was an inhibitor for such customers highly regulated to adopt SASE. So with this traffic application, we really try to help such customers, right, get all the benefits that has SASE can offer, right, in terms of scalability, elasticity, consuming security, right, as a managed service, etc. So I kind of briefly mentioned the use cases driving this, but just trying to provide some more concrete examples on why this is something that many of the customers that we are talking to really waited for such functionality, right? The first bucket of use cases that we are seeing are in the area of forensic analysis and threat hunting, right? So very security-oriented use case. Just to double click a bit, right? Think about a case where I might have missed to define a certain policy in my environment, right? So something bad happened, maybe some malware went through, right? Maybe I had a policy, but instead of blocking or dropping malicious stuff, I by mistake or not, right, I might have configured it to just alert me. So something bad happened. Now, right through the attack chain, I'm able to block further advancement of that bad thing. But I need very often customers, right, once they identify and block something, they also want to do the root cause analysis or the forensic analysis to see how that bad thing happened in the first place, right? Or how that malware end up on my device initially, so that the next time I make sure I'm in a better spot with a better security posture, making sure such things are blocked far earlier in the attack chain, right? So and I'm talking here about the forensic analysis use case. Something similar can be applied for threat hunting, right? So how can I do this post-mortem analysis? Sure, I can look at logs as well, but logs have certain limitations, right? Either in terms of the details that are covered in a log, or let's say if I have a missing policy, I might not have logs for certain things at all, right? So these are just some examples where for a true forensic analysis, you need to have the full traffic captured for an amount of time that would allow you to reconstruct the attack flow, etc., right? So that's one of the key use cases that we're trying to solve, enabling customers with this traffic application function. The next one I have there listed, it's about being able to provide legal evidence and maybe even quantify the impact of a breach, right? There are many scenarios, right, where I might need to prove that some event happened, right? Let's say, irrefutable proof that an event happened. Again, logs can offer a certain view, but very often in order to prove something, right, you need the exact packet capture to reconstruct, let's say, a file, an email that's been sent. That would definitely prove or disprove that a certain thing happened. Let's say you had a bad actor trying to exfiltrate something or communicate some sensitive information through an email, right? Sure, DLP could kick in if it's configured in the first place and if it's correctly configured. But if something still it's being missed, right, you can having the packet captures, you can reconstruct the absolute full flow and decide and analyze without any doubt if something happened or not. Third bucket, again, the first three are more security oriented, right? We hear very often that certain customers invested a lot in third-party tools for additional checks. Let's say the customer is placed in a certain vertical, right? They might submit it to get threat feeds specific to their vertical from other partners. And right, let's take an example of having such threat feeds and threat signatures coming through to something like Suricata rules or similar, right? And we very often hear the use case that, hey, I fully trust Prisma Access to do this inline inspection in real time. But I also want I invested a lot in developing, right, all these libraries of rules, and I want the traffic or a copy of the traffic run against these rules and signatures that I created. Maybe it's not necessarily for additional threats, right? But maybe I want to be alerted for a certain combination of events, right, that I can define in Suricata for my own specific good. So I want the traffic to be run, a copy of the traffic to be run about against these third-party tools. So that's another reason for such customers to require a copy of the traffic that goes between their users and the applications, right? And last but not least, right, the fourth bucket there, it's our more network-oriented use cases. Right, when your users are, again, in an airport, your applications could be anywhere, security stack is in the cloud, right? Application performance and experience is key, is crucial, right? Prisma Access is offering awesome tools like to manage, monitor, and kind of pinpoint the root cause of such application performance and experience issues, right, with our ADEM, Autonomous Digital Experience Management tool. But that's kind of pinpointing on where the issue is, right? But let's say if the issue really belongs to your application server, right, then the next step, natural step, would be to try to get, let's say, a packet capture of that exchange between your user and the server in order to debug further and try to address and fix a potential issue there. So again, you end up at some point very deep in your investigation requiring or finding very helpful getting a copy of the traffic that's between your user and the app. So again, these things were very common use cases when in the legacy architectures, right? When right, you would have these additional SOC and NOC tools in your data center. You'd have these packet brokers along capturing and managing your traffic in between your users and the apps. But when all these things got so dynamic and could spread in any combination possible, right, getting your hand on this copy of the traffic becomes very challenging, and that's exactly what we are solving here with Traffic Replication. I'll double click a bit in how we are offering this copy of the traffic, right? So in this diagram, I have on the left-hand side, right, all the combinations. I might have users, right, sitting in airports, at home, in the office. I might have branches, right, with some IoT devices connected, right, trying to connect to controllers or apps in either data centers or just going to SaaS and internet. So any type of traffic that could be out there, we have now the ability to get a copy of this traffic and make it available to our customers. How exactly is it being done? Right, in the legacy architectures, something like a tap or a span port would be very common. In that case, right, you would have really a stream of packets, right, coming or being replicated, right? It would be like just another port that would send a copy of the traffic that's been seen on other ports, right? That would be in the legacy architectures. Now, because we are fully in the cloud, right, there are certain complexities that we need to account for, and not just technical complexity, but also thinking about what's most effective from a cost perspective for our customers. We all know that moving traffic around from the cloud to somewhere else can become quite expensive. So with all these technical and commercial reasons in mind, our design for Traffic Replication implies continuously storing PCAP files in a cloud storage object. Think about a Google storage bucket, or very similar an AWS S3 bucket that we are creating, and in these buckets we are constantly placing PCAP files representing this copy of the traffic that's traversing Prisma Access. So instead of a stream of packets like you would be used in a legacy architecture with a span or tap port, this copy of the traffic will come in a slightly different fashion here. But again, very standard. It's going to be a series of PCAP files that you can access in a bucket. Again, very standard way of interacting with any cloud provider. Couple of details, right? I'm mentioning here that these buckets, we are calling them short-term storage, right? Just to be more precise, we are going to store these PCAP files for 72 hours. Let's say I get a copy of this traffic that's going in this very moment. That would come in a form of a PCAP file. That PCAP file is going to be stored for 3 days. So you have all the time in the world as a customer to fetch those files and do whatever it's important for you to do, right? Either you just want to store it for a longer term, or you want to run some third-party tools against it, or you just want to even open a Wireshark on these PCAPs and do your regular debugging. Another interesting thing here to mention, right, especially from a security point of view, if I get a copy of the traffic, but that traffic it's SSL encrypted, which is the case most of the time with the in the current times, right? Vast majority of the traffic is encrypted. The added value of these extra checks would decrease significantly, right? You can still detect many things, but if you don't decrypt, right, obviously your visibility into what's happening in between your users and the application, it's decreased, right? So for that reason, we offer the ability for the customer to decide and configure it in a way where in the PCAPs that we are making available in the copy of the traffic, we also apply SSL decryption there. So again, it's a fully configurable option. You either want to use it or not. But if you do, you have the ability to get decrypted traffic, which is again a huge thing from a security standpoint. Okay, double clicking a bit, right? And as mentioned in the agenda, right, I'll have a quick demo. So I'm offering a bit of highlight, or not highlight, yeah, an overview of how the infrastructure behind the scenes look like. So the UX that I'm going to share a bit later, right, will make more sense. And also knowing this is important if you want to consume this copy of the traffic, right, to understand what's on our end, so the solution can be optimum design as an end-to-end solution, right? At the bottom here, I have represented Prisma Access. Again, probably no secret, we are being hosted in GCP and AWS as cloud providers, right? And we are present everywhere, right? We have all these locations where we have presence. I'm just having here some examples, right? US East, US Central, Europe, etc. But right, the regular Prisma Access locations. And in each of these locations, right, we have a series of nodes, either serving what we call mobile user traffic or branch remote network traffic, etc. All these for each of these regions, right, we will spin up new infrastructure that would capture this traffic, this copy of the traffic, and will produce these, as I mentioned, PCAP files that would be stored in some new cloud storage buckets that we will create. Again, as seen in this picture, this is what I want to call out, right? In each region where Prisma Access is present, we'll also have these buckets available. That's important to save cost for moving traffic around, which implicitly, right, it translates into a more efficient cost for our customers. Like any of like what Prisma Access does in general, right? You can be sure these additional infrastructure will be dedicated to you as a customer. So from a security standpoint, these buckets will be dedicated to each customer. So there's no chance mixing traffic between tenants, customers, etc. These will be dedicated instances, right, where you get the full resources, and from a security standpoint, things stay isolated as well. One very important thing I want to call out, and that's being captured in the title here, right? Very often I get the question when I'm talking about traffic replication, hey, it's great that you give me this copy of the traffic. I waited for this for a long time from a SASE vendor, but when I turn this on, do I have any impact on the performance of my inline traffic, right? From the regular Prisma Access perspective? And the answer is absolutely no. This was a key design ask, and right, our engineering team did an awesome job making this happen. The reason why there is no impact on the regular inline inspection and performance is because, right, we are getting this copy of the traffic outside of our processing nodes, right? We are using some native GCP and very soon AWS mirroring functions, right, which are happening outside of the processing nodes, right, at the GCP and AWS layer level. So that makes sure we are not touching in any way the functionality of the processing nodes, right? So this will be a very independent function than the regular inspection that we are doing in Prisma Access. For sure, doing that has its own complications, right? When you capture traffic outside of your processing node, then that means that very often that traffic is encapsulated, encrypted, etc. We took care of all that complexity, right, in our new Traffic Replication service to make sure we remove the headers that are not relevant for our customers, right? Some eventual IPsec encapsulation. And if the customer wants, we also can, as I mentioned before, can apply SSL decryption for the original traffic. So again, I don't want to dive into the implementation details, but since I'm going to a quick demo later on, I believe it was important to mention, and also highlighting that the performance and the function of the inline function, which is key, right? It's not affected in any way by turning this on. I get also often a question, okay, you provide me these PCAP files, how can I get them, right? How can I put my hand on these PCAPs that represent the copy of the traffic? As I said, right, we also targeted in our design to use as much as standard methods possible. By standard, I don't necessarily mean like a true standard, like I don't know, BGP or something like that, but some mechanisms that are very well adopted in the market, right? And as I already highlighted, right, we are using the GCP storage buckets, right? And you can interact with these buckets just like with any other Google Cloud bucket, and very soon AWS S3 bucket. Again, a very common mechanism for anyone adopting cloud, right? So you can list the objects that are present in the bucket. You can download the read, etc. So all the regular operations that you would typically expect from a bucket, right? Nothing specific to, nothing proprietary, nothing out of the blue in our implementation, right? And the way we are sharing access to these buckets, it's by asking the customer, hey, please provide us your own GCP or very soon AWS service account, so we can use that your service account to share read-only access to the bucket that belongs to Prisma Access, and which is the kind of a place where we store these traffic captures, right? I'm highlighting this because in the demo I'm gonna show how you can provide and this service account that it's required for you to access these captures. And probably that's the last implementation detail, but again, I thought about it's quite important to mention, right? Because I'm basing this on the amount of questions I typically get in customer conversation on this. For good reasons, right? I'm getting asked, okay, now you are storing these copy of the traffic that it's been seen in my environment in these buckets around the globe, right? In all the locations that you have. If I choose to even do SSL decryption to this traffic, that means that you have clear text captures, right, sitting in these buckets. And this raised the concern, right, for good reasons. Okay, how are you making sure that this is being secured and nobody, no wrong person can access these clear text data, right, that belongs to me as a customer. So one, we are following all the best practices, GCP and AWS best practices in terms of how we can share these access to these buckets in a secure way, right? So again, this is highly used in real life already. We are not inventing anything, and we are following all these secure best practices. But on top of that, right, we also, before storing these PCAP files, we also apply another layer of encryption with a key that we ask the customer to provide, right? So you, Mr. Customer, you need to give us a public key. We'll use that public key to encrypt these PCAP files before storing them and sharing them with you in the buckets. So when they are at rest, they are encrypted with your with a key that only you, Mr. Customer, can decrypt, right? Only you have the private key to reverse the operations and get to the original PCAP that was intended to you in the first place, right? So this type of extra security layer would make sure that even an internal bad actor in Palo Alto Networks, even if he or she would have access, right, to such buckets, right? And of course, this is highly regulated and restricted, right? Who has access to this type of infrastructure? But even in these extreme cases, even if you have access to the bucket, right, without the private key, you'll only get some encrypted files, very likely useless for any malicious activity further, right? So we took these, we analyzed this very seriously from a security standpoint, and we made sure all these things are happening in a very, very secured manner. Enough talk, right? Seeing it is believing it. So now I hope the use cases are clear, right? We in short try to offer this copy of the traffic for extra checks, and the manner we implemented it in the form of continuous PCAP files that we are storing in some buckets. My demo here recorded, it's using Panorama, right? As you probably already know, right? Prisma Access can be managed in two ways. Panorama, right, which as of today, right, would allow you to manage a hybrid environment where you might have some firewalls and also Prisma Access, right? Panorama, it's a great way to manage both and have consistency. The other way of managing Panorama, right, it's through cloud management. I'll probably have further demos coming up using that interface, right? But for now, it's a Panorama-based demo. There are a couple of steps, right, that need to be in terms of configuring the feature, right? Very straightforward, just 4 steps. I stopped the video here, right? Practically, we need to provide a public key. This is the public key that I mentioned beforehand. This is being used, again, with some more details behind the scenes, right? I'm kind of giving the high-level version of it. But this public key is being used to encrypt the PCAPs before storing them and making them available in the buckets. Number 2, again, that's an optional thing, right? Do you want to get SSL decrypted traffic in these PCAPs? Yes or no? Number 3, it's about enabling the traffic replication in specific Prisma Access locations, right? You might want to turn this. We have customers that are saying, hey, I want all traffic everywhere, right? They're geographically distributed and they want this to be turned on everywhere. There are customers that, hey, I only am interested in these specific locations and maybe I only want to get the traffic for my mobile users only, right? Maybe for office traffic, I already have some other mechanism in place that I don't want to retire at this stage. So this is about number 3, right? The real configuration and turning this on in certain locations, or all, depending on what you want. Right, and number 4, sure, we start the replication of the traffic, we store these pickups in the buckets, but now tell me, Mr. Customer, how can I share access with you so you can now read and fetch and download these pickup files. So this is where we are asking for the customer's GCP and AWS service account as well, right? So these are very simple 4 steps to turn this on. I'll keep going in my video, right? We'll bring up I'm talking now about the first 2 steps. This is the panorama interface that you're very familiar with. Under the same cloud services plugin, under the configuration menu, we'll have a new tab, right? Traffic Replication. And at the very top, right, these are the 2 knobs that are being available. One, it's selecting the certificate that will contain the public key that I mentioned for pickups encryption. And the other knob was the number 2, the SSL decryption thing. Now, jumping in the third step, it's practically we have all the locations listed there, right? And then you have the ability to turn Traffic Replication on and off for mobile users. Very soon we'll have support for replicating remote network traffic. So right now you only have one column for mobile user traffic. Very soon you will have the second column where you can get branch traffic as well, a copy of that. I'm now at the 4th step where practically the customer, the admin, would configure the GCP service account. This service account, I'll pause here for a second. This service account, it's the account that will be using to share access to the bucket, right? And maybe pay a bit attention to this service account, right? I had configured here a GCP service account. This belongs to my private GCP account, right? And I'm gonna highlight that. So I configured my own service account there on the Prisma Access side. Now I'll have a VM here sitting in GCP, again, in my own Google account, totally outside of the Prisma Access interface. And I'll just interact with this bucket, just like with any other GCP bucket, fetching these files, right? This is my GCP account, right? I have one instance there running. I'm being logged in. I just highlight what service account am I using currently. Again, very standard commands. This traffic replication, blah, 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 is the service account that this VM is using. And this is exactly what I configured in Prisma Access, right? So now I'm interacting with the bucket, but how do I know the name of the bucket, right? How do I know from the customer side, where do I need to go? What is my bucket that I need to interact with, right? And for that reason, once you turn this feature on in the different locations, under the status page, again, we'll have another tab with traffic replication. And for each location, when I turn this on, right? In our case, I only turn traffic replication in 2 locations, right? I'm presenting the names of the buckets. Where are they sitting? Is it the GCP? For now, we are covering the GCP locations. Very soon, we'll have support for the Prisma Access AWS locations as well. And what's the cloud provider location, right? In their nomenclature. Why is this important? This makes sure, right, we minimize cost, and the customer, right, can put a probe right next to us in the same GCP location. So any cost in moving traffic around, it's minimized to almost 0, right? If your probe who's getting these pickups is in the same location, the cost becomes very minimum. If you try to get the same PCAP files, right, from the other side of the world, probably the cost is very different. So that's why we encourage the optimum architecture would be to fetch and read these files as close to our locations as possible, right, for an optimum end-to-end solution. So now I have the GCP bucket name. I'm gonna use that name in my VM to just interact like with any other regular GCP bucket and S3 bucket later on. So I can very well list all the files that are sitting there. You'll see there as you can expect, right? We will deal with a lot of traffic. That would mean a lot of PCAP files. This is what's been present currently in the bucket, right? As you can see, we are zipping these PCAP files. It's saving a bit of space, but right, what's important here is that it's a very standard interaction with the bucket. What I'm showing here is that, hey, locally I don't have any files stored here. Now I'm just copying one of the PCAP files to the local drive, right? It's gonna take a second probably. And now I have the zip file, which I can obviously extract. And in there, I have the true PCAP and some metadata. Again, I won't go into further details, but we try to make things as smooth as possible for customers. This is the encrypted version of it. In the metadata, for instance, in the info text there, right? I'm talking about which certificate, which key has been used to encrypt that file, right? Because there are scenarios where at some point maybe you want to change that key, right? And you might have a combination of some PCAPs have been encrypted with the old key, some newer files have been encrypted with a new key, especially if you store these for longer, for a year plus, right? Then you need to keep track which file has been encrypted with which key, so you can undo all these operations. Coming back to my deck, right? This was just a quick demo, right? Showing how easy it is to turn this feature one, and how easy and how standard is to get these PCAP files, right? Now, you are more than free to use this traffic application to get these PCAP files and then do your own analysis. Maybe you have your own tools. Maybe you just want to use purely Wireshark, right, to debug some things, right, in the traffic. That's great. That's very doable, as we saw. But very often, right, customers, coming back to the first picture that I used in this presentation, right, talking about SOC and NOC tools, very often in on-prem deployments, we see customers using specific third-party solutions, right? I am listing here two of them, NetWitness and Corelight, and right, very often customers use these tools on-prem, right, getting a span port, sending traffic to these tools for extra checks, extra analysis, right, all the value that these companies are bringing, right? But now when the same customer is adopting SASE and moving to the cloud, right, the visibility that these tools would have is diminishing, right? So with our traffic application, we are also enabling customers, in case they invested a lot in these in such tools, right, to continue to use them even if they adopt SASE in a pretty much transparent mode. So we have these partnerships running with NetWitness and Corelight. We are in discussions with other vendors in the similar space, right, to integrate. Why these integrations are important is, right, these third-party vendors, both of them, been great in working with us to make sure they adopt their ingestion mechanism to our way of exporting this copy of the traffic. So most, if not all of these vendors were very used to ingest a stream of packets, right, through a tap port. Now they develop mechanisms to read in these buckets, get this series of PCAP files, stitch them together, and do the same type of analysis that used to do beforehand, right? So why is this important from a joint customer perspective? The experience would be pretty much transparent. The customer wouldn't need to care about the buckets, about unzipping, about decryption, right? NetWitness and Corelight would take care of that, those extra steps, right? But again, it's been a great experience for our joint customers. We are very open to work with any other tools in the space. And we have customers that develop their own private tools, right? That are very much free and open and very, very possible to use Traffic Replication, right? Totally separately. It's again nothing proprietary. It's designed to be specifically vendor agnostic. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the presentation. I have here a couple of FAQs that I get often, right? I thought about including them since I'm getting these questions a lot. I'll go quickly because I'm also checking the time. We are getting asked, okay, for how long are you hosting these PCAP files for, right? How much time do I have available till you will delete them, right? The answer for now, it's 72 hours. So 3 days. This should be plenty of time for any third-party tool to get these PCAPs, right? Or if you want to just store them for longer, you can. Again, there is plenty of time to get these PCAPs and store them in some longer-term storage as well. Second question, right? Is there any limit in the amount of traffic that we are able to replicate? Of course, in Prisma Access, we have very, very, very large customers, right? Where especially certain locations deal with a huge amount of traffic, right? And bandwidth. So it's a fair question. Hey, are you, even in these extreme cases, are you able to replicate all traffic? The answer is yes, right? There is no limit into how much traffic we are able to replicate. The beauty is that we are, again, using premium cloud providers behind the scenes, right? That gives us somebody like GCP, right, is giving us the ability to scale fast and pretty much limit without a limit, right? If we need more resources, we are able to scale right away and deal with any amount of traffic. Yeah, that's very, very neat and important. If we think about a forensic analysis use case, right, the ability to have all traffic available is key, right? If I'm missing parts here and there, right, then my analysis can suffer big time. How do I enable Traffic Replication? Right, this will be an additional add-on to be acquired on top of any existing Prisma Access editions. Again, for more details, I would encourage you to talk to an Palo Alto account representative for exactly. It's a very straightforward SKU schema, right, and pricing, but I wouldn't cover this part here. I would encourage you to talk to an account representative. Another question, what kind of traffic are we able to replicate? I think I covered it already, but is it about SaaS and internet traffic only, or is it private application traffic? The answer is both, right? Any kind of traffic, it's available for replication. For now, the only maybe limitation that we have, we are only replicating traffic coming from mobile users. Very soon, we'll also be able to replicate traffic coming from remote networks, from branches. Quickly, again, very common question, are you doing any sampling, right, in these packet captures? The answer is no, right? We capture everything, the original packets, no sampling. Again, this is key for a true forensic analysis use case as well. Could I store the packet captures for more than 72 hours? Not natively. This 3 days period, it's kind of fixed for now, right now. But again, since we are talking about regular buckets, nothing stops a customer to offload these files from our bucket to maybe another bucket or other methods of long-term storage if this is important for that customer. And last, again, I'm just kind of repeating myself here. Can we do SSL? Can we capture and provide SSL decrypted traffic in these PCAP files? Maybe I went fast over this, but this is a very, very strong ask for many security-oriented use cases. It's key for I mentioned things like NetWitness, Corelight, right? All these third-party tools, especially in the NDR space, right? If they get SSL decrypted traffic, what they can detect and do, right? It's significantly better. So that was also something that we paid a lot of attention. I'm short on time. Just to recap, Prisma Access in the SASE space is the first vendor that it's able to provide such a copy of the traffic. We are very proud of that. And with this, right, we truly believe that we eliminate any trade-offs that our customers might have done till now, right, when adopting SASE, and we pretty much eliminate any kind of blind spots in terms of security use cases and also NOC and application performance debugging. And right, I'm just highlighting again the main use case drivers there. For more details, we again, this been just a release, this traffic replication feature. So we just published and augmented our Prisma Access admin guide with more details on traffic replication. We also, the second line there talks about the blog that we recently posted, talking about how GCP and us together, right, help jointly, we're able to make this happen, right? It's a lot of complexity behind the scenes, but we thought this is an important thing for our customers, so we delivered on that. With this, I just want to thank you for your time. Hopefully this was an interesting session. I'm trying to see if there are any